Hey everyone, and welcome to Jossam Graphs. Today we're diving into that invisible force, that little engine inside all of us that gets us out of bed and helps us chase after our biggest dreams. Yep, we're talking all about motivation.
But let's get real for a second. We have all been there, right? Staring at a task we know we need to do, but we just can't seem to begin. It feels almost impossible. So why is it so incredibly hard to just start sometimes? Well, the answer to that really lies in understanding what motivation actually is. So, to get to the bottom of it, we're going to peel back the layers of motivation, kind of like an onion. In this explainer, we'll kick things off with a basic definition, then we'll explore the two main types, uncover a pretty simple recipe that actually governs our drive, look at its fundamental building blocks, and finally, we'll talk about the absolute peak of motivation, something called the flow state.
All right, first things first. What exactly are we talking about when we use the word motivation? Because it's a whole lot more than just a feeling. It's practically a science. You see, at its very core, motivation is this internal state. It's the force that explains why we start something, why we keep going, or why we stop. It is the fundamental why behind pretty much every single thing we do. But here's the thing, motivation isn't just one single thing. It's actually made up of three key parts. First, you've got direction. That's just the goal you decide to aim for. Then there's intensity, which is all about how much energy you're willing to throw at it. And finally, you have persistence. That's your staying power, how long you can keep at it, especially when the going gets tough. Okay, but where does all this drive even come from? Well, it turns out that motivation really flows from two very different places. One from deep inside of us, and the other from the world all around us. And this brings us to the two big types of motivation. On one side, you have intrinsic motivation. This is your inner drive. It's when you do something just because you love it, or it's super interesting or fulfilling. And on the other side, you've got extrinsic motivation. This is more of an outer pull. You're driven by stuff outside of you, like getting a prize or, trying to avoid getting in trouble. Let's make this a little more real. So intrinsic motivation, that's like staying way too late to finish a book just because you have to know what happens. That's pure enjoyment and curiosity right there. Or maybe it's that deep satisfaction you get from solving a really tough puzzle, that feeling of accomplishment. That's intrinsic. The reward is the activity itself. Now on the flip side, you've got extrinsic motivators. These are all external. So maybe you do a tough project at work, not because you love it, but for the paycheck, or for a shot at that promotion, or just to get a good job from your boss. The reward comes from the outside, after you've done the thing. Okay, so motivation has its different parts and different types, but can we actually predict it? Is there like a formula for it? Well, surprisingly, the answer is kinda, yeah. Let's take a look at the simple recipe that really determines our drive. At its simplest, our motivation really boils down to an idea that highlights the critical role of time. Basically, you are the most motivated when you truly believe you can achieve something that you really, really value. And on the flip side, your motivation tanks when you have to wait forever to get it, or when you're the kind of person who gets distracted by every little thing. So, how does this recipe work? Well, the first ingredient is expectancy. This is all about your self-belief. Do you genuinely think you can pull this off? If your expectation is a low, well, your motivation is probably going to be pretty low too. The second ingredient is value. And this one's super straightforward. How much do you want it? A reward that means the world to you, like a lifelong dream, is going to be a way more powerful motivator than something you just don't care that much about. Makes sense, right?
But it's not all positive. There are also a couple of things that actively drain our motivation. The first one is impulsiveness. This is all about how easily you get distracted. The more you get pulled away by your phone or social media or whatever your temptation is, the more your motivation for the main goal just gets zapped.
And the final piece of this puzzle is delay. This is all about time. See, the longer you have to wait for the reward, the less motivating it becomes. It's exactly why it's so much easier to just watch one more episode on Netflix right now than it is to work on a huge project that's not due for another 3 months. So we have our recipe, which is awesome, but what's it all built on? To really get motivation, we have to go even deeper, all the way down to the fundamental needs that form the very foundation of what drives us as humans. And that brings us to Maslow's famous hierarchy of needs. The best way to think about this is like a pyramid. The idea is simple. You can't really be motivated by the stuff at the top if your basic needs at the bottom aren't taken care of.
You're not going to care about the value of a promotion if you're worried about food or shelter. We have to satisfy those basic needs first, like safety and food, before we can be truly driven to find belonging, build our self-esteem, and reach our full potential. We've covered the what, the why, and the how. So now let's talk about the ultimate goal. We're talking about the absolute peak of human motivation, a state of just effortless focus and incredible performance. Let's talk about flow. This quote is so powerful, and it comes from the original research on this topic. People who experienced this state would often describe it with this exact metaphor, the feeling of being just effortlessly carried along by a current. So what is a flow state? I'm sure you felt it. It's that magical feeling of being in the zone. It's when you're so completely absorbed in what you're doing that the entire outside world just melts away. You're totally focused, you're actually enjoying the process, and your sense of time gets all weird. Hours can literally feel like minutes. And the best part is that flow isn't just some random thing that happens. You can actually create the conditions for it. There are 3 key things you need. First, your goals have to be crystal clear. Second, you need to get immediate feedback on how you're doing. And third, and this is the big one, you have to find that perfect balance where the challenge of what you're doing is matched perfectly to your skill level. Not too easy, not too hard, just right. Wow, okay, we have covered a ton of ground here. So before we wrap up, let's just quickly recap the most important points so you can create your own personal motivation toolkit.
So let's put it all together. Just remember, motivation is made of 3 things: direction, intensity, and persistence. It gets its fuel from 2 places: intrinsic rewards from inside and extrinsic rewards from outside. Your drive is always a balancing act between your expectancy in the value of the reward versus your own impulsiveness and the delay. And the ultimate goal? Find that sweet spot to enter a flow state.
And that really brings us to our final question for you. Now that you have the toolkit, what are you going to apply it to? What project, what hobby, what passion are you going to chase to find your own state of flow? Let us know down in the comments. And hey, if you found this explainer helpful, please do us a favor and like, share, and subscribe to JASM Graphs for more. Thanks so much for watching.